Greetings everyone. So it's been a while since I was able to put out a video, and the reason is we've been working on just small projects here and there trying to finish things up, whether it's the framing or the electrical. So I'll kind of give you an update video on what we're doing, and then I'll show you what we're moving on to next. So it started out with this truss bracing detail. Originally, I had the diagonal braces going all the way up in one piece, and the inspector pointed out that they're supposed to be staggered and you only go to the first two trusses. So we ended up having to pull some stuff out and redo it to where there's a diagonal there, and then there's another diagonal way up there at the top, but it also had to have a continuous 2x6 flat with a 2x4 up against the wall, kind of making, I think they call them a strong back. And so I'll try to get up there and give you a shot of what that looks like. So here's a shot of the detail at the top of the wall. So it gets a 2x6 at a diagonal 45 degrees where it comes down and hits the top of the wall and then ties into the block between the second and third truss, or the second and third truss. Then also gets an A35 clip down there. Then when you move up, they wanted, and you can only go 6 foot maximum between the top of the wall and the next strong back. So in this particular section, it was pretty close to the bonus room wall, so I couldn't go 6 feet. But anyway, there's the 2x6 flat and the 2x4 on edge, and that has to be continuous across the truss or across the end wall. And then you have another diagonal that's going to tie into a block up on top. So there is the block at the roof level where that 45-degree board comes and secures. And I forgot to mention, as you step up to the upper bracing above the top of the wall, it turns to a 2x4 diagonal, and they wanted the I think it's 24. It's made for a 2x4 rather than the A35 clip. So here's another example. So basically anywhere the door, the gable end came in to a flat wall, we had to have this detail. So I think there was probably 6 gable ends on the house that I needed to do this to. So it took a lot of time because trying to, get the boards in there and whatnot with everything up there was kind of difficult. The other project Matthew and I were working on, we're boxing in all the eaves and gable ends, etc. The soffit and whatnot. And so we got that in and all zip tape sealed up so we could move on to the next project for the roof. So the next project for the roof is we're going to put in 3 inches of rigid foam on top of this roof decking. Then we'll have to put radiant barrier plywood down before we put in the roofing underlayment and then the metal roof. And that 3 inches of foam will give us a continuous I think it's like almost R20 based on the particular foam that I'm getting. The energy data on the house build says it needs to be at least an R15, but I think the foam board that I'm getting in 3-inch is a little higher. So, but what that'll give us is at least a continuous R15 over the whole roof. So you won't get the thermal transfer coming through anywhere that if you had insulation up under the underside, it's going to transfer through that 2x6 top cord on the truss, and you'd get that warmth coming through. So kind of like we did on the walls where we have the continuous R3, I think it's R3.6, with the foam zip sheathing. It'll have the same characteristics on the roof. So will be one of the next projects coming up. The other thing we've been working on is the electric service main and all of the telephone and cable lines. So the smaller conduits that you saw in the trenching video before, I brought them all up and terminated them right here. And that's going to be my water pipe. I just haven't cut it off. I want to get one of those frost-free hose bibs so the water shutoff can be down underground below the frost line. So a lot of that'll get cut off. I just popped it in there so it's there, and that way we could have water on this side of the property as well. And then I couldn't get the solar controller that needs to go into this spot here. Everybody is completely sold out of them. I was looking to get the Enphase system controller 3G, so you could have solar, generator, and battery backup all on this switch. And when the power goes out, even though it's a grid tied solar, that switch will allow you to have your own little mini grid, and it then turns into an off-grid system that uses the solar and the batteries and or the generator when you lose power from the utility company. So I couldn't get that box, so what I'm going to do in the meantime is just stub up into this junction box, which will be the line coming from the house, and then over to the main panel and tie in there. And then later, once I can get I'll just get an inspection for temporary power, and that way we could have power at the house. I'm tired of running the generator. And when it comes to the electrical utility side, this has been a pain to us. This year, they changed the regulations to where the connection coming from on the meter side, on the utility side, if you are doing underground, it has to be rigid pipe from the bottom of the box down below the grade 6 inches. So it's a 3-inch rigid conduit, and trying to get someone up in the mountains who can thread 3-inch rigid conduit is nearly impossible. We have called everybody. Finally, we found a place about 45 minutes, might even be about an hour away, that can thread it for me. So I've already have the pipe, and it's an expensive piece of pipe. It's a $200 piece of pipe for 10 feet. And it's just crazy. But the utility, they don't want you can't use the compression fitting that goes on the rigid conduit. They won't let you use the slip-on type with the screws. It has to be threaded at the bottom, and it has to be threaded at the top, and it's got to be continuous. So our utility is PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric. So if anybody's that's watching this, that's getting ready to do their utility main, that's what you're up for. That was changes for 2023 in the PG&E Green Book, which is basically everything on how to run utilities for PG&E. It's kind of their Bible of installations. So getting that pipe threaded has just been a nightmare. We've spent several days calling around. I tried a rental company, a tool rental company that their website says they had it. I had it all scheduled for pickup, and lo and behold, the guy calls me back and says they don't have it. And that would have been an hour away to get that. And he ended up saying if I wanted to go to Stockton, which is probably an hour and 45 minutes away from here, they have the tool down there. And I said, there's no way I am going to drive an hour and a half, pay $200 a day for a threading machine for 2 threads, because I'm basically going to take that 10-foot section of pipe, I'm going to cut this section off, and I'm going to cut this section off, and I just need to thread 2 ends, because the ends of the pipe are already threaded. I only need to make 2 threads, and so there's no way I'm going to drive an hour and a half plus $200 a day for a threading machine. So thankfully, we think we found a place that's a little closer where I could just take the pipe to them and thread it. So probably not the end of the world. And the other thing I had to redo was this drop that goes from the utility pole to where they're going to make a splice in a box that's going to sit in this section. Originally, I had the conduit coming up the back of the pole, and when the utility inspector came out, he said they can't have it. The riser has to come up on the same side or near where the transformer is up on the pole, and the transformer is on the opposite side, and so they broke the pole up into quadrants, and they wanted the riser over on that side. To me, I thought, wow, couldn't you just put the riser up this side of the pole, and you're gonna fly the wire around like a foot, maybe a foot and a half. But they didn't like that, so I ended up having to buy 2 new long sweep elbows, and thankfully I hadn't buried it in sand yet, so I didn't have to dig out all the sand. But I had to buy 2 new sweep elbows, and then add a section in a straight section of pipe under there. And then they also wanted male adapters up here in the box where they're going to splice, and then you have to thread on the bushings to protect the wire where that comes up. So that was a lot of fun too, and more expensive. So I mean, looking back now, if I was to do this again, I would just pay the utility company to do it. It's been too much of a hassle for me to do. I think they've made it so difficult where the average homeowner would not be able to do this whatsoever. I mean, the other project that Matthew and I worked on the last couple of days was taking out this big oak tree that was up near the top of this driveway, the wraparound driveway by the in-law unit. And that tree was super dangerous, and I'll show you why. So here is the top of the stump, and you can see where the trunk has like curled in on itself, and it left an opening, and that opening rotted the trunk all the way up. So that that is probably about 2 foot in diameter there. And as that trunk went up the tree, it closed in a little bit where it wrapped, or it did close in where it wrapped around eventually, but the tree basically had like a 4-inch ring around the outside of the trunk, and then there was like 12 inches to 14 inches of just hollow spot. And I noticed the tree just, it wasn't real sturdy in the wind when it was up high, and so we decided to take it out, and it actually opened up the driveway quite a bit, and I'll show you that as well. So before we took that oak tree out, the driveway kind of came around here, and then it wrapped back around. You can see a little bit of the darker dirt area, how that went. And so now with the tree out, we were able to take this hillside here and pull it back. So it's really going to open up the driveway when we get to the top. Anybody staying in the in-law unit there can now just pull in straight, and we could have a couple parking spots there that won't interfere with the wraparound driveway. So it did really open up the driveway. I'm definitely going to miss the shade of the oak, but there is a very good chance that that tree was going to fall down this winter. So that's the update of what Matthew and I have been doing the last several days, and maybe even the last couple of weeks. Moving forward, we're going to work on grading around the house. This last winter, we had problems with standing water, and it got really muddy and whatnot. So my buddy Rob and Nick are here, and they're going to work on getting the slope, the dirt properly sloped away from the house. And then anywhere we're going to have driveways, we're going to put down a 4-inch base of rocks to get everything graded, so we won't have any standing water this winter. I sunk the genie lift a couple times in big mud puddles out here in front of the house. So the goal is to get gravel all the way across the front of the house where the driveway and parking areas are going to be. And hopefully I won't need the genie lift in the back of the house this winter, because I rutted the backside up pretty good, that you've probably seen in other videos. So that's the update. I want to thank you all for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.